The Hidden Pond, Episode 6, in John's eclectic photo story time adventures. John had been walking for hours. The forest, somewhere deep in the Pacific Northwest, had swallowed the trails long ago. What had started as a planned hike had unraveled into an instinctive wandering. John, following the dappled light through the moss-draped trees, letting the forest lead instead of the map. It was something he had done before, giving himself to the landscape, camera in hand, eyes wide open. He called it photographic surrender, a state where he stopped chasing images and let them find him instead. That day, something had shifted. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became. No wind, just the breathless hush of old-growth trees standing like ancient sentinels. Ferns brushed his legs. The scent of wet bark and the earth filled the air. And the light, oh, the light, filtered through a high canopy in silken strands, painting the forest floor in patches of gold. Small, no more than 20 feet across, oval-shaped, cradled by the rim of smooth earth and stone. The trees around it leaned inward, reflecting perfectly upon the still surface of the water. So clearly that a moment John thought he was looking at a mirror. He froze. There were no ripples, no breeze, no falling leaves or skittering bugs. Just stillness, as if the pond were holding its breath. He slowly lowered his pack and knelt by the edge, camera hanging forgotten at his side. The water was unreal, richer than any palette he'd seen. At the edges, it was deep, midnight blue, so dark it must have hidden stars beneath it. But towards the center, it turned turquoise, light as glacial ice, almost glowing. He couldn't tell if it was depth or the sum tricks of the light filtering through the trees. The colors bled into each other so smoothly it was impossible to find the scene. He finally raised his camera, and still he did not shoot. Not yet. He needed to absorb it. The stillness wasn't just visual. It was a presence, something that had reached inside him and slowed his breathing, silenced his thoughts. In that moment, the stress he carried from the world outside, deadlines, fatigue, the weight of cities and screens, fell away. He was just here. A blue jay called from a nearby branch. A katydid fluttered across the clearing, alighting on a bent adder. Birdsong floated through the trees like incense, and yet the water never stirred. He finally pressed the shutter. Click. A perfect frame. The trees doubled upon themselves, as if rooted in both earth and water. The sky, a whisper in the background. Another photo, then another. He adjusted his aperture to capture the total tonal shift from blue to turquoise, pulled out a polarizer to reduce the reflection, then took more images that leaned into the surly beauty of the surface. But after a while, he put the camera down again. He sat, and for a long time, he simply was. Time passed like mist. The sun shifted, casting longer shadows. One dragonfly skimmed the surface, but didn't break it. A deer moved quickly through the distant brush, but did not drink. It was as if the pond existed outside the normal rules. A still herd at the center of the forest's constant motion. John scrabbled in his journal, noting the colors, the atmosphere, the silence. He gave the place a name. The Pond of Stillness. Not for others, but for himself. A personal landmark and a map of memories. Eventually, As the light began to fade, he stood. He gave the pond a nod, half reverence, half farewell, and turned to leave. But something in him had changed. Later, when people asked about his favorite photographs, he would speak of the still pond. He'd show them the images, each one almost too perfect to be believed, and they'd ask if where it was. He'd always smile gently and say, "I don't think I could find it again even if I tried. It's not a place on a map. It's something the forest gave me when I needed it." And deep down, John suspected the pond wasn't always there, that it only appeared when someone was still enough to truly see it. Coming up next in John's eclectic storytime adventures, the 6 drops. 5 different photographs were used throughout this presentation and their corresponding camera data. And thank you for listening to this presentation of the Hidden Pond. If you enjoyed this presentation, please consider subscribing and hit the like button. Thank you.